Want to welcome back to the Cannabis podcast, Adam Hernandez. Thank you for joining us. It's been a month or two since your last visit, and a lot has gone on your end. And tell us about the updates and what's going on.
Yeah, so thanks for having me back. And so we were talking about Freedom Act Lubbock, which was at the time, a petition initiative to decriminalize low-level marijuana possession here in the city of Lubbock, Texas. And we successfully got the amount of signatures that we needed that went before the city council. And as we expected, they voted that down. And so we, as the initiating committee, had the option to then put it on a ballot for the people of the city to vote on. And so we've done that. We've requested that. And the city secretary has already gone through the motions to make that happen. And so this issue will now be on the ballot in May of 2024. And I guess the other exciting news is that I will be running again for mayor of Lubbock, Texas. I ran last time in May of 2022. So I will now be on the same ballot as marijuana decriminalization here in the city.
Okay. Awesome. Well, congratulations on the run and everything going so far. And congratulations on getting on the ballot. I know you said they were going to shoot it down. And I believe the election is May 4th, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that requires May the 4th be with you.
Yes, we already have a t-shirt designed and ready to go. So
awesome. I mean, how can you not at that point, right? Well, very cool. What have you seen has the community's response been to the cannabis initiative and also yourself doing the cannabis initiative?
Yeah, so I've been pretty heavily involved in the community on a weekly basis for the last going on 4 years at this point. And so I was already sort of known in the community for different things. Um, I've often been on the news for those things here locally. So I do have a bit of awareness here in the city, but Freedom Act definitely put me more in the spotlight because I'm the communications chair for Lubbock Compact, which is the organization behind that initiative. And so when they call for interviews and things of this nature, I'm the one that goes. So I think in the 60-day petition window, I counted them up and I can't remember the exact number, but I know it was somewhere between 8 and 10 times I was on the news just in that 60-day period. So it was pretty intense there. So obviously being the face of that movement brought a lot of attention to myself. And so I guess the feedback overall, we dealt with, I mean, throughout the whole process of this year of leading up to the petition signature phase and all of that, and including the signature collection phase. I mean, we interfaced with probably 20 to 30,000 Lubbock citizens over this last year. So I mean, we've been in front of a lot of people, engaging with people, answering questions, hearing their feedback about this. And for the most part, I'll say that the majority are in favor of it. And what was somewhat surprising, not really surprising, but somewhat surprising, the amount of them. I want to say like even the bulk of our signatures are from people who don't even actually use marijuana. And some of them have never used marijuana at all. And they just don't think people should be in jail for it, which was the heart of our ordinance. And so it was interesting to see how much the culture has shifted on this issue, even from the time when I was a teenager. When I was a teenager, there was still such a high level of stigma around it that I don't know that we would have been here if we would have did that petition initiative at that time. But over time, just everybody's sort of position on this has changed, even if they don't care for the substance itself. So there has been some pushback, which was pretty expected from like the city leaders, and they did a pretty good job of keeping quiet until it got up on the dais. And that's when we started to actually hear what their thoughts were. And we heard, you know, a lot of the same things that you generally hear, some of these outdated statements. They definitely all leaned on that, well, this is against state law, we can't do this, and things of that nature. That was expected. We did have a council person who said that we were lying to people, that we were lying about the data that we had as far as the
Interesting.
arrests. yeah, in the racial breakdown. She flat out just said we lied. And so we had to correct that a couple times in the media. Another council person, not on the dais, but in a different article here locally, he said that he felt like if people were already willing to break a misdemeanor law, that they're more likely to break some bigger law. So in essence, he's saying that, I guess in his view, people who use marijuana are just criminals anyway. And so that was pretty interesting. We've also had several of them say pretty confidently that they don't think it'll pass. But they also said just as confidently that they didn't think we were going to get the signatures. And so we're excited to prove them wrong. But for the most part, the pushback has been coming from folks who are just sort of out of touch, in our opinion.
Right, right. Just that old mentality of, well, it's illegal, so I can't, you know. I'm interested to know, is that pushback, do you have maybe like an age generality demographic of that, or would you say it's kind of across the board?
Well, you know what's funny is it definitely skews older, but again, the reason why I say they're out of touch is because the people that we interface with who signed the petition and who were very much in favor of it ranged all over the age spectrum, all over the political spectrum. I mean, we had literal Trump supporters, because they're going to let you know,
Mhm. Yeah.
who signed it. We had just literally everybody. We had older women who you would look at them and you would think never in a million years they would sign something like this, and they would be very excitedly coming over to sign it. So I just think that they're out of touch with their broader community, and but it is skewing older with the folks who are saying these sort of outdated things.
Yeah, that's not surprising. And I've been reading a lot of articles lately that have been saying that even though cannabis is being legalized, a little bit more and more every state by state, the usage isn't necessarily going up, but the perception of harm is going down. And that's kind of what you're talking about. Like, hey, listen, even if I don't consume, I know friends that do, they're not losers. All those debunking stereotypes are kind of, dissipating. And
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
interesting.
Yeah.
And I like seeing it. And that's awesome. And so May 4th comes, obviously the ideal is it passes. And it passes, would it, I guess, what's the next steps after? Because I know a lot of states and cities like wait a year and stuff like that for it to implement. Would it become law immediately?
Yeah, it would become law immediately. Now there's some parts of the ordinance that are going to take some time. So in our ordinance, it does direct the local police department to update their training materials and
Mm,
also to update their training itself. They also have to include marijuana arrest numbers in their quarterly reports that they generally give anyway. But there'll be some things there that may take them internally a while to implement. But as far as law, it should go into law pretty much immediately, and that should be it. We'll see if there's any major pushback from like what we've seen in one of the other cities, for instance, where the county sued the city, which was weird because the people voted it in, not the council. But
mm,
I don't think that's going anywhere, but it is happening. There was a in that same article where that council member said that pretty much everybody that smokes marijuana is just criminals anyway. There was a quote by the judge of our commissioner's court, and they asked him directly in the context of that city being sued by a county, would they be interested in doing anything like that? Would they be looking at anything like that? At least from his perspective, he said that that's not something that he would want to do. That's not something we really anticipate in this area. I'm pretty familiar with the commissioners and city council and just the way things operate here in general. And I've never seen it where the people voted something in by petition, and then somebody tried to repeal it or fight it after that fact.
that's interesting that you just brought that up because that's almost exactly what's happening in Ohio, where the people passed a ballot initiative approving marijuana, and whatever the details of it are. And then immediately after it passed, I mean, with like 80% support, the GOP said, okay, we're going to gut this entire thing, change all the tax structure to where majority of it goes to law enforcement so they can update their training and all that stuff, which they should be doing anyway, regardless of whether there's a new initiative on the ballot or anything. But it's interesting in Texas because Texas isn't a ballot initiative state. And I was like, oh my God, this succeeded. Can we do this for the whole state? And it's unfortunate that we can't. But being in
Yeah.
Austin, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, in order for something to go on a ballot here, it has to be the state legislature that does that. Unfortunately, again, in my opinion, it's because they're out of touch. And I feel like a lot of times the GOP feels like they have a line to toe. And once they have that narrative of whatever that issue is in their head, and they feel like this is what the party wants me to say, they're just going to continue to beat that drum in the face of everything telling them that people want this. We had so many people and continue to have people who reach out to us and say, how can we do this at the state level? First of all, if Texas was a petition state where we could get things at the state level on the ballot by petition, this would have been done years ago
100%.
here in Texas. And so again, people from all across the spectrum saying it just needs to change at the state level. And so hopefully with some of these new candidates running in November, there's going to be some chances to maybe switch out some people in those seats. And hopefully some of them will run on that because it is a really popular issue here in the state. And it is unfortunate that we can't do it by petition because we would have already done it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you 100% in the statement of if a state is able to do ballot initiatives, they should be doing that not only with cannabis but with everything that they want. And I mean that's literally democracy in action, right? And it's fascinating because in Austin it's decriminalized, and so the cops kind of they got bigger fish to fry right now. But as soon as you leave Austin, you're on the highways and the freeways, and people are like, "Oh, I got arrested for weed," and I'm like, "Yeah, because it's still illegal in Texas, and of course they're going to arrest you if they find it now." And to your point about towing the line, and I think we're kind of at that last hurrah, like that last stand of these old alliances kind of crumbling, and even they know, hey, this is kind of a losing issue. But like you said, they kind of got to put up that frontline fight for whoever. And it's interesting to watch it all play out because between Democrats and Republicans, cannabis polls almost higher than any other issue on both sides. It's a freedom issue, really, at the end of the day. And that's kind of what even if you don't want to consume it, you don't want to take somebody else's freedoms away from doing what they want. But tell me a little bit about your, I know cannabis is a big issue for your mayoral campaign, but what else are you, trying to do there in Lubbock? I know you mentioned a lot of stuff kind of goes on in Lubbock, even though it's a small town. But tell us about kind of what you'd like to do and your approach.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, marijuana decriminalization isn't really a big part of my platform. Obviously, everybody knows that I support that. There is a large part of the community that is calling me the 420 friendly candidate and all of that, which is great. But it's really not a central part of my campaign. Unfortunately, or fortunately for me, however you want to look at it, the last time I ran, some of the things that are on my platform are still the same because they haven't done anything about them. And this may get on the local sort of boring level for some of your listeners, but it's pretty like simple, straightforward stuff. Like we have a big issue with loose dogs all over the city, and there's various hot spots for this where people they don't even want to be out walking in their neighborhood. They don't want their kids out playing in the neighborhood because they're afraid that they're going to get attacked by dogs, and it's a very real fear. We actually had a man last year literally was eaten alive by a pack of dogs here in the city. And that's just one of thousands and thousands of stories of people who either their pets have been killed or badly hurt because a dog attacked them while they were walking their pet and it was a small dog or something, or where kids have been attacked. if you see senior citizens walking around Lubbock, a lot of times you'll see them just walking with like a big stick. And there's only one reason why they feel like a need to walk around with the big stick. And so
And they're not Teddy Roosevelt.
yeah, it really is a big issue. And they just, previous councils, including the current one, have just not moved an inch to do anything about it. And usually the general move around it is just to sort of dismiss it. And there's like a dangerous dogs city board here that meets every month, and like obviously these things aren't working. So there's some very specific things that I have planned to actually do something about that and take action.
I can relate to
And
that because I was attacked by a 100-pound pit bull,
yeah,
and when I lived in LA, and that's LA, and the stray dogs, stray cats, that's an issue everywhere. Small towns problems are big towns problems. So that hits home for me. So
yeah, and the thing about it is like Lubbock is, I guess in the broader context, it is a small town, but here in Texas, we're the 11th biggest city here. And so we're growing very, very quickly. And in my view, we have the chance to um, put us on a path to have better outcomes. So as we continue to grow, we don't end up as a big city with these same problems going on or them getting worse. So the dog thing is a huge issue. Another huge issue here that's been ongoing for decades and decades is our codes enforcement. Various issues with that, where you have like substandard structures that are just there, that you may have people who are experiencing homelessness might stay in those, and this creates all sorts of different issues for neighborhoods. Um, you know, weeds and things overgrown, and a lot of the times those are on city property. So the
mhm,
city is sending out tickets to people for their weeds, but then we have weeds on our properties, right? And like, so there's
figure.
illegal dumping, another thing that's real big here in the city. We are a college town, and unfortunately, the dog thing and the illegal dumping thing go hand in hand a lot of times, because a lot of times what will happen is college students will come, they'll get a huge dog, then they
Mm,
move away, they can't take it, they just go dump it somewhere in the city. And so, again, very specific things we can do to improve our codes enforcement issues. We do have some issues surrounding homelessness, but again, we are at a size where we can effectively deal with it. We do have an organization here that does the housing first model, which is pretty much the industry standard in that field, from what I understand, from talking to them many, many times. And I also talk to many people who are experiencing homelessness and get their side of it. And so trying to come up with some solutions to that issue for everybody involved, for business owners, for the people experiencing homelessness, for homeowners. And I again, I just think we're primed to take care of a lot of these things because we aren't super huge yet and we aren't really small, right?
yeah.
The other thing, the other main thing is mental health from a public health standpoint. We have a lot of gaps in our mental health systems here, where there's not a lot of collaboration going on between the various entities. And so there's more that can be done there. There's also more that can be done for the council to empower the working group that has formed around this issue, is in terms of funding or other things. And that hasn't really been done. We, again, out here in West Texas, what I tell people all the time is we're the capital of the plains. We are the biggest city out here where we are. The region we serve when it comes to education and our medical services is the size of the state of South Carolina. It's a huge area. So we're it, but we don't have a inpatient mental health facility for youth. We don't
Mm,
even have enough for the adults. And then even in that aspect, we're dealing a lot with like more of the major psychosis, which of course is a worthy cause, but we can do more to deal with the more common forms of mental health issues that people may be dealing with, whether it be anxiety or depression or various things that are a lot more subtle than major psychosis, right? We are, unfortunately, this has hit very close to home. My oldest daughter took her own life in 2018. Lubbock, Texas is #1 in the state for youth suicide attempts. And so this is a very big issue for me,
I'm sorry
something that
about that.
something I'm trying to tackle. And then the last part of it, of my platform, is just improving our city from a quality of life standpoint. There's been essentially a culture of being asleep at the wheel when it comes to leadership. This council, as a matter of fact, closed down 3 of our neighborhood pools that have been around for my entire life because the city just let them deteriorate to the point to where it was just you would completely have to rebuild the pools. And so they had used we got some ARPA money, which we've already gotten the first half of it. We're going to get another big chunk, but essentially, these councils have spent all of it except for $5 million, and I believe total we got like 68 million or something. I can't remember what the number was. It was a huge number. They spent all of it except for even the part we don't have, all the way down to 5 million. And so they were like, well, we got 5 million and we have these pools that are deteriorating. We don't have enough. Each pool is like 8 million. But splash pads are 1.5 million a piece. So we could close the pool pads there, which splash pads are cool until you're about 10 years old. Then nobody's using a splash pad, right? So it was a huge uproar in the city. And par for the course for our council. They don't really take a lot of community. When they do, it's more of like a show. Like we're taking your feedback, but then we're just still going to go up here and do whatever we were going to do in the first place. And so just improving parks, bringing those pools back, and also adding some other facilities where there aren't any. And then underlying all of that is just changing that mode of operation of how council has been operating. I'm very big on community feedback. Even when I go speak to groups, if I'm called to speak somewhere, I'll normally try to keep my speaking part like very as short as possible and then open it up for Q&A. That's really how we get the best results, when you hear different perspectives and people are saying things you may not see, or they may have insights that you don't have and stuff like that. And so making the council meeting times more accessible. This council made them very restrictive. So making them more accessible, having more open dialogue with the community and other leaders, and getting a lot of these things done.
That's awesome. And again, I'm sorry to hear. I don't know if I knew that, but that's terrible, and my prayers are with you. But what you're speaking to is just a general overall new energy, more transparency, more action. Because what we've seen over at least my lifetime, that as soon as they get elected, it's feet off the gas, right? It's okay, I got my job, and we do it in our real lives too. Like, okay, I got the job, I can go there and, I'm going to take the day off or whatever. But that's not the way it is in public service. In public service, you got to, you know what you're getting into, where it's 24/7, and I love hearing that you're like, why would I want to talk a lot when you're the community? I want to listen to what you're going to do so I can action item it, as opposed to doing a 30-minute speech and then just shaking hands and kissing babies at the end of it, and, just walking off and giving a thumbs up. But that's awesome. I'd love to see, new fresh leadership in Texas, or just across the country, all across the country. And running for a set, what have you seen has been the difference between running the first time and the second time? I know things get easier as you do them.
Yeah, so the first time was obviously, baptized by fire situation. So how I came to run for mayor the first time was I started out doing community work. I was a co-founder of Lubbock Compact. The reason why Lubbock Compact was created was because of a lot of these frustrations that a lot of us share about how the council runs and operates. And there's a lot of cronyism, obviously, where council is doing things more so for their friends or business associates versus the community at large. And this has been an ongoing. So that's why Lubbock Compact was created, to be a watchdog and an action group. And so we constantly keep up with city council and what's happening there. We inform people. We do a weekly live stream on our Facebook page. It's called Lubbock Compact Live, where we sort of disseminate this information. Also let people know when there's things that they may want to go make public comments about, and helping them with that process. We also spend a lot of time either advocating on behalf of or training other groups to advocate for themselves around various issues and things of that nature. And then calling out local leadership whenever that's necessary, and getting things in the media when that's necessary, stuff like that. And so that's how I sort of came into all of this in the summer of 2020. And Through that process, as we started to get some wins and people understood that, we were really here for the community and trying to actually get things done. A lot of people from all across the city, just community members, started to ask me if I had thought about ever running for office. And I was like, no, because I was 39 years old and wasn't even registered to vote in the summer of 2020 when I started all of this. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which is a whole other story. But uh, once I realized what a
Yeah.
mistake that was, and started getting involved, I was just like, no, that's crazy, right? Like I just literally got registered to vote. And so I blew it off for a while, and then it started to become sit down interventions by community leaders who I had come to know and respect, and they started asking me to seriously consider it. So that's when I decided in the summer of 2021 that I would run for mayor in 2022. And so I was coming into it without a lot of experience in doing, well, no experience in doing a political campaign. I was aware of how to do movements. That's sort of what I'm engaged in. But it was a lot more scrappy trying to get myself into political spheres where I was known on the community side, but I wasn't necessarily known by the political players that had been here forever. So at this time last year, I was just at a bunch of events, just getting in front of a bunch of people and introducing myself and having conversations.
Hmm.
So all of that, I don't really have to do as much anymore because I've continued my community work. People are very familiar with who I am and what I stand for and all those things. And so we definitely have a larger team developing. I didn't even have a team at this point. Last time, I didn't even have a team until like March is when I was trying to identify some people who I felt like could help me. And I had one already that was a part of Lubbock Compact, and the other one is my now girlfriend Kim, who was doing a lot of things in the community, organizing in her own right, and she was very good at that. And so I was like, yeah, I need her on the team and this other guy. And so we put that together, and we sort of just were building the plane as we were flying it, essentially. Did really well. I became one of the two front runners in that election without any of the endorsements from all the organizations that endorse local candidates, without a whole lot of money. They were uh, Lubbock County Elections Office was actually preparing the voting machines for a runoff between myself and the guy who won, because that's how much excitement there was around the campaign. And
Nice.
I was getting the candidate interviews that a candidate like me normally doesn't get, because they don't take you serious here in Lubbock. First of all, I'm a brown person. I'm from East Lubbock. I have long hair. I've got a tattoo on my hand,
I
right?
feel
Like
you.
all of the various things that you're not supposed to be, I was those things. And so normally they wouldn't take a candidate like me. But in my instance, they knew of my work in the community. They knew that I was familiar with city policy and how to get things done. And so they sort of had to take me serious. This time, all of that has been built up even more. This past year, I've been given several big awards for community work and things like that. And so it's just a lot more momentum this time at this time of year. And so we're building the team, getting a finance committee together, because they did outraise me 6 times. They're pretty worried about me getting in the mayor's seat.
Yeah.
And so we anticipate that again. And so I think we're in a really good position. Plus Freedom Act has really raised the profile a lot, and people are that's gained a lot of support from people who maybe didn't know about me before.
That's awesome. And I keep seeing little small articles, in either Marijuana Moment or wherever, every morning I Google cannabis and hemp news and stuff. And, uh, it always says a little small, Lubbock County. And I'm just like, hey, I know those guys. That's cool. I'm loving to see the organic growth. And that's what we need, especially, in this community, is growing organically and listening to the community. And that's awesome. Well, I'll get you out of here on this. And it's Adam Hernandez, thank you for joining us, a cannabis candidate with a community-minded approach. And tell everybody where they can go to support your campaign, where they can find you on social media and all of that.
Yeah, so on Twitter and Instagram, I'm Adam H for mayor. On TikTok, it's Adam for mayor. Website is adamhformayor.com. And if you would like to help with this whole initiative, I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard about all of the crazy things that have been happening in Texas from a legislative standpoint. There's us and a lot of other people around the state, but us in particular, who are trying to work to flip some of these seats to get some fresh energy in there, to get some different thinking in there. And if you would like to help with that, at the you know, at the risk of sounding shameless, we need lots of money out here. We're in a area where most of the people who spend the big money are very far right. They're never going to give money to a campaign like mine. We also have a situation where when you have more progressive people with money, they're afraid to give money to certain campaigns because then their business will be blacklisted and all of these sorts of things. So it's a very unique situation, and we need money. We need lots of money to do this. I raised about a little over $20,000 in my last campaign, and that came from mostly donations averaging about $20. There was a few exceptions, but mostly averaging about $20. They raised $120,000 against me. So we have a goal this time to raise at a minimum $100,000, and you'd be surprised how quickly we can get there. And so you can go and you can donate on the website. It has the PayPal link, or you can send a check if that's what you'd like to do. And other than that, you can just spread the word and help us get the word out.
I mean, it sounds like they're worried if they're raising that much money for you. And, I want to say thank you for joining me again. And I'd love to have you on, a couple more times before then, just to keep the dialogue going and update on your progress, and Adam for mayor. And thank you for joining us on the Cannabis podcast. We'll talk to you again soon, bud. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks. All right. See you later.
Best of luck.